Tight ends are always a wild card.
Tight
One
ends
there
are.
with us, next there with the receivers.
Tanner's got his gloves on right now, ready to go.
Oh my goodness.
I never played most athletic lineman.
And I had to give it to him. On double teams, Chris is a big guy. He's like 6'3", 280. So I know Chris will give me a little extra help because I gave him that onion ring.
So we're like, all right, let's go. When braces suck, find the good. And that was just kind of our mantra.
You got any new hobbies or anything like that? Or bring
Me?
it out artistic side? Yeah.
No, I'm not very handy at all. So I've been trying to do some things that that need you to be handy with. So so I do a lot of things and end up doing it like multiple times because I do it wrong multiple times. So and then eventually it gets done right, and then I'm like, I'll never do that again. So like you can't screw up like raking and stuff like that. So I'm pretty good at that stuff, you know. But other than that, like
A lot of spring cleaning going on.
a lot of springs. And we've been pretty busy with football and so that's been good. And these days fly by with all the Zoom stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, and because if you're not in a meeting, you're like waiting for a meeting. You got like, I got 20 minutes before another meeting, and it's like, okay,
That's not real time anymore.
no, it's
Yeah.
just kind of like and then there's, I don't know about you guys, but so many emails now. Everybody's just nonstop emails, and half of them you just hit and delete, but it's still, you know, taking time out of your day. And so, I think now with school being out and we're starting to slow down football wise a little bit, I think it's going to probably slow down a little bit. But we amped up recruiting now, so we're doing all this recruiting stuff. You know, because kind of we went through a phase that just nonstop, just with the guys. You know, want to focus on them, make sure they're good and everything, and then now we're starting to focus on recruiting for the last week or two because the guys were in finals, so we didn't want to do much with them at that point either. And now it's starting to try to transition out because a lot of guys are going to start to, sounds like, get jobs and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's kind of, we actually kind of want to start off like asking you what the adjustment has been like. You know, obviously you talk about Zoom calls and everything else, but we were talking about, you know, we get insight from Sam on, you know, the team development stuff, that, you know, different meetings that are going on, his workouts from home and everything like that. But in your opinion, like, where have you seen like the biggest impact with everything going on, especially like you said, recruiting is kind of the prime time.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, like when it first started, it was obviously, you guys know better than us. And I know when it first started, Tony was going through a tough patch anyways, and with his mono and things like that. And then you guys didn't have the opportunity to take your trip and stuff. So it like punched you right in the face. And like, as you guys have heard us say a number of times, is, you know, the old Mike Tyson quote there, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And then if you go back to even the stuff that Ryan Bradley talked about during preseason camp, is you got to keep swinging. So we're like, all right, let's go. When braces suck, find the good. And that was just kind of our mantra, you know, with the staff before, you know, because we were like, okay, we're on spring break and we still had that, maybe we'll come back. You know, we didn't really I think it would be lying to each other if we said, oh, it was going to go on for the next 3 months. And obviously now it's going on for a lot longer than that. And so I think we always were optimistic that, okay, we'll be back. And then we had that, whatever, I think it was March 29th date that we were going to come back. And then, you know, a couple of days in, it's like, no, we're not coming back. And it was like, okay, now let's put a plan together. And you know, and I think just in typical offensive line fashion as well, as you put your head down, you grind, you know, you just keep going. And that's all we did is, okay, what do we got to do? Okay, first and foremost, we got to take care of the kids. We got to take care of the players. You know, let's make sure that those guys are good to go with however we're going to handle this thing moving forward academically, because there's still a lot of the unknown there. But, you know, again, those mantras that we always talk about, they come into play at this point: adapt, overcome, attack. So it's like, okay, let's adapt to this. Let's figure this out. And, you know, the most successful people are the ones that can adapt to any circumstances and situations. So we've got kids like that. We've got a program like that. So it was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Take care of the kids first. Okay. And then communicate with our graduating seniors, you two, a little bit, and just kind of see where guys are at and what they might need for help or anything along those lines as well. And offer the opportunity to stay involved with the team if they'd like it. All right. And then, okay, now let's make sure strength and conditioning are on point. Okay. Next step. Okay. Now let's make sure that, our incoming class is on point, and they understand, okay, this is what we're doing. So we just kind of went through a whole, process of, okay, making sure everybody's on point, moving forward, and then put the plan into place over the course of that, whatever, the extended spring break, and just talked about it as a staff. And then, okay, here we go. And then we just, initially we weren't going to talk to the kids at all during spring break, because we were like, let's just get, they're going through a lot right now, and let's let them kind of, and then it was like, whoa, this thing is a little bit bigger than any of us had anticipated. So we started communication like almost immediately, and stayed, active, like just nonstop with them, just any information we got. So, because as always, I think the better informed you are, the better decisions you can make. And then you just feel more empowered at that point when you have information and you have knowledge. So, and not that we knew what was going on either, but anything we did know, we were all in this together. And it was going to be, hey, together we can accomplish great things. So together we can get better through this experience. And that was really the big theme. And Sam can attest to it, because early on when we had some guest speakers and stuff, it was all just like, how do we get better through this? And in some regards, there was some things I do think we got better at, and because you really had to learn how to communicate a little differently than, and everybody used to, everything was a text message, and Snap, and now it was Zoom, and you actually seeing people. So there was some good that came out of this, and I know talking to you two guys, it's like, well, it wasn't much. Okay. So pump the brakes here a little bit. And I definitely understand that, because that was, a moment of a lifetime that you wish you could have. This past weekend got stolen, and got to try to find a way to get that thing back, and hopefully in August we can do that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you talked about that's very interesting to me is, and I'm sure you guys can attest to it, is right about now, it almost feels like every adult kind of wants to pretend like they know what's going on right now, and wants to be almost kind of like the psychologist or the social worker, or be like, oh yeah, like you can do this, you can do that. But in reality, and I think what you've done a great job with, and which was awesome on Saturday, is kind of nobody has any idea what's going on. So this isn't one of those times where you can just pretend like you know what's going on, but rather offer up the idea that we are still a community in this, not just, oh, let me know if there's anything I could do. Realistically, there is nothing that anybody can do physically right now to help, which is why it's so great that coaches like you guys, or adult figures who we all look up to out there in the world, are kind of offering a helping hand in a more of a emotional or a theoretical way, rather than trying to act like they know what's going on. You know what I mean?
I think, and we talked to the guys about that, it'd be irresponsible for us to sit here and act like we do know what the next step is in this. And, we're no different than everybody else's, and again, Coach Escalante talked the other day, and he said a comment that is like, you never want to try to get ready. You always want to be ready. And, but I think in this situation right now is that, have no idea what to get ready for next, because we don't know what's coming our way. And let's not try to be, just like you said, let's not try to be those guys that sit there and think everything. And it's like, right now, I don't know if anybody knows anything as far as what the next step is, other than, okay, right here, right now, what do we got to do?
Yeah. Kind of going off that whole thing, with your mindset now, I guess we're kind of curious of how is your past as a player, being someone on an offensive line, being a member of the Roach Patrol, still, and kind of going through the fire up front. Kind of how has that shaped you now, years later, as a coach, trying to teach life lessons and teach skills and develop young men into adults? We're going off into the world now. You're shaping Sam every day by interacting with him.
That is a major challenge, by the way. Probably one of the harder things ever is trying to shape and mold Sam Nelson.
But I mean, I think what's interesting is when you bring a personality into it and you have that kind of, like you said, you get punched in the face mentality. Kind of want to hear, one, where did that come from as a player, and two, how is that mindset as a player kind of transitioned into your life now as a coach and in your personal life as a father, et cetera.
Yeah, again, I'm a very simple person, and I always think less is more. So I try to just kind of these little mantras that we have, I truly try to live by, because if that's how we're going to run this program and our culture and our beliefs and things, well, it's got to start with me, so I got to believe in it. And I always think about get up, get another, like that mindset of just constantly, okay, whether it was good or bad, whatever just happened, no matter what, you still got to get back up. Okay. And if it was great, what just happened, okay, then you've got to stay up and you got to continue to move forward, because too often it's like you get knocked down and you're like, oh, I'm just going to lay here for a little bit, and as we all know, if you lay there, people are just going to walk over you, and then if you think you're too big and that you can't keep moving forward and keep getting better, then obviously that humility side of things, I think, is going to play a role in things as well. So I think it's just that constant get up, get another. There's always something more. There's always something more to attain. There's always something more to do. There's always something more to achieve. There's always something more to, help another person, whatever the case may be. And, I think that's kind of how we've wanted to run this program. How I try to live my life is like, okay, all right, great. That was accomplished. Now it's to move on. Okay, we failed at that, but let's fail forward, learn from it and grow from it and move on. Okay, that went good, but not good enough. So let's stop doing this. Let's start doing this, and let's add this to it. Okay, so there's just that constant movement. And because if you're stagnant, you're never gonna, I think, be as successful or significant as you want to be. And that's what we're trying to do here at Springfield College and within our program. So I've always tried to, whatever, like my kids always say, I'm not one of your football players, because the same things that we talk about with you guys, I talk about here, and sometimes it's probably not applicable, but that's just kind of how I do things. So, so I think it's always been, this is just how we're going to do things, and I learned from great coaches along the way as well. And I've obviously coached along. Coach Robichaud, who recruited me, just reached out the other day. He's the head coach at UMass Dartmouth. So we always stay in contact with one another. Coach McKinney, Coach Anderson was one of the best coaches I ever had in my life, was my offensive line coach my first 2 years at Springfield. Frank Kronoff, my high school coach, so I took all of their philosophies, and obviously Coach Manello. I mean, I never had Coach Manello as a positional coach, but, talking to him throughout the years about the Roach and just about some different things. And you guys were there for his speech a few years ago, and then he handed over the original Roach manual to me that day, so that we put that in the archives. So I've just had so many special people in my life that help mold the philosophy that we have as a program. And I think that's constantly the thing, is it's always us and we, that the only thing that makes this thing go is the guys that, like you guys sitting in front of me, and everybody else. It's I was just fortunate enough that Coach Long handed the torch over to me. It could have been anybody else that believes in these Springfield College ideals, but I I've had a lot of people along the way that have given me the tools to help continue to develop and build this culture.
Absolutely.
And I think that kind of hits back to like what we look for in like great offense and defensive linemen. Like, you got to be coachable, like learning from all those other people. So when you were like named head coach at Springfield College, a place you played and a place you care so much about, how important was that to you? And like, kind of what was your goal for that program?
Yeah, again, I know it's like a broken record, but the same things, I got introduced in the weight room that day, and I said, this is where it should be too. If it was, the only better place would have been in the motel, because this is where it starts and ends, and that attitude and effort that you need in the weight room, that carries over. And everybody has a different philosophy as far as like, the weight room's a long way from the field, and you're talking to the wrong people if you're talking about Springfield College here, as far as like, we're not as big and all that other stuff. We've, the twos that we always talk about. And, but when our guys get in the weight room, they show the mettle that it takes to be successful on and off the field, and the culture that's established in there. Again, those same principles of just, we never tap out, and, is that you're always continue to work a little bit harder, and, just the camaraderie in that weight room and working together on the racks together and trying to push yourself to get to that last rack, and like just everything that ties into that is, I think that, again, that just helps. Those are proving grounds, just like the football field is a proving ground. Just like the practice field is a proving ground, just like the classroom is a proving ground. The community is you're always trying to prove yourself, and you're always trying to, again, get a little bit better each day, right? So that, that's just that mindset that you have to have. So I think when I got named head coach is, again, those same things. We were talking about it the other day, and Sam, I know Tanner and Tony weren't on the group chat, but one of our coaches put in a countdown until the first game or something like that. And I said, we never count the days down. Okay. And one of the reasons why is and then I said, we make every day count. That's all that matters. Because if you guys remember, but you guys were transitioning as a freshman those years, right? So
when you came in,
yeah.
I don't think I never had any interactions with Coach DeLong. So you were the only person that I had interactions with.
Because we recruit, but you were the first recruiting class, right? So
yeah, you came.
Yeah, we came down to North Haven, and and you and Dave and Rob, right? We sat in Coach's room there, and
you brought the army down there.
We did.
I think you brought
Coach Davis, me, Webby.
Oh yeah, Coach Davis was there. Webby, Coach Hollick was there too. I think you had 4 guys.
And then we went and saw Woody. So
that's right.
At Edge.
Yeah.
So anyways, we never count down. We always make the days count, because Coach Duke put that in the other day, Sam. I think so I didn't want to, because a lot of people have countdowns and stuff like that or whatever. But so we used to call it Mission 92, because that was going to be the first game was 9-2 that we were playing Winnick. And then we had a countdown of like 100 and something days.
I was there for the countdown. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that.
And like it was like 100 and whatever. And it was like, we're so concerned with this opposed to getting there, and that. So again, learned so much that first year, because you have all these things that you want to put into place, and some of them didn't work.
Yeah.
So, and
I think, sorry to kind of chime in here a little bit, but what's interesting is, I don't know, there's obviously thousands of things that go into a single season, but how we had that countdown, and my freshman year, we ended up 5-5, and it's interesting to see how, and then the turnaround the next year was the 10-0 season.
Yeah.
And the shift is crazy to see, just little changes that you make here or there, and like you said, learn from it, which is really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Because that recruiting class was like, again, sending a flock of coaches, a fleet of coaches to go see guys that, we thought were the right type of guys for Springfield, so we changed how we recruited, and and then, like I said, we failed forward on that, because it was like, we're too product oriented right here when you put a countdown, because all that mattered. And that's, once you get to that point, it's everything that came beforehand that ultimately is going to lead you to whether or not that day ends up the way you'd like it to. And even if it doesn't define who you are, but we put so much of that being a defining moment. That's when we came, like, this, score on a board doesn't define who we are. It's the people inside that locker room and how much we care. And, so I think that whole year was that probably more than anything. Again, we had all these great ideas, and then we like kind of remolded everything and said, no, this is how we're really going to do things. So we learned so much in that first year, and we continue to learn. We continue every staff meeting is like, what can we do better? And every decision we make is, how is it going to make these kids better? How is it going to make this program better? And that's all that matters. And we say, hey, we're going to have lively, heated, active discussions as a coaching staff. The minute we leave this room, we're 100% all in. And there's one vision, and that's all that matters. And because if the kids see one vision and then align all their actions towards it, then then we're going to have something special. So it's a matter of like making sure that we have one thing, and everything kind of builds towards that thing, to the to the to the top of the mountain, so to speak. So I think just again learning so much those early years, and again then drawing from past experiences ultimately led. But what we look for again with when you're talking about linemen and stuff and the mentality, it was the whole attitude and effort, because when you guys talked, and I know Mark Schleller and what you talked a little bit last week, but so I used to, when I was growing up, I'd go down to the Woodlands in Pennsylvania, and they had an offensive line clinic, and it was part of the cool clinics, coaches of offensive line. I'm sure you guys heard that. And the symbol is a mushroom,
Yep.
feed them shit and they don't hear much and things like that, and they're left in the dark. But Jim McNally ran these clinics, and so I would go down there, and there was all these NFL guys and things along that line. And one of the things that they were talking about developing an offensive lineman is like, hey, if you can't develop an offensive lineman, they're the last stop to the bus stop, because there's no other position you can play if you can't play O-line. What happens if you can't play D-line, where do you go? Offensive line, and so eventually everybody kind of trickles down to there's the last stop right here. So you got to make that work. So it was always funny, but those clinics were, in Wilkes-Barre, PA, and had, some great times with Coach Manello down there, because he started the program at Kings. So, we're looking at 20 plus years ago now with some of those clinics. So it was a lot of fun, and that's where I learned a lot of offensive line.
And then to go off those clinics, like as a guy who has coached both offensive line at Springfield for a number of years, but you also coach defensive line at Ithaca, what are some of your favorite drills to do with offense and defensive linemen?
Again, when you break your drills down, we always would break them down into a team concept. So technique, right, effort, assignment, and then man's man. So I think a little bit of each one. Again, the shoots to me is done. Here we go. I think every position should have some type of shoots mentality, because you're building from the ground up. So you're building that base with your footwork to start. Then we take away some of the footwork aspect of things and just work in the upper body. So you're developing every skill set you need in that period of shoots right there, as well as a toughness attitude, as well as the camaraderie within there, as well as the accountability factor if you don't do things right. So everything an offensive lineman needs, you can develop in that shoot period. Does sometimes it get so fast that you don't even know what's going on, and it's kind of a blur. Yeah, but there's at points during the season, there's a point behind that too. It's like, okay, when Judgment Day comes around, there's a point behind that, right? And then you leave Judgment Day and you go right down to a live dive. There's a point behind that. There's a point with everything. Again, like we always say, there's a purpose behind everything. If there wasn't, then why are we doing it? So that mentality, everything we did in the shoots builds up ultimately to a Judgment Day, so that, hey, once you crush that, then, the season becomes easy. And we all know, like, smoke them if you got them. That was a term that we used to use all the time, because, like, hey, guys would be dying over there, and you're just sitting there, okay, let's go, next rep, and here we go, and line up and do it again, because you've been through the fire, like we said, together, and steel is hard because it's been through the fire. So you got to have that mindset anytime you enter it. But I think, again, when you talk about, like, when you see the defensive lineman doing shoots, that happened because they saw the offensive lineman do it, and how much hand position that you can do and footwork you can do, and how many reps you can get in a short amount of time. Because if someone's like, hey, you have 10 minutes of individual, what are you going to do? Probably 7 or 8 minutes of shoots, because you could get so much work done in a short amount of time right there. And then maybe spend something a little bit, okay, we got to work some veer releases, but even in the shoot, you can work a veer release by putting the towel down and ripping it, So you can do everything you need to it. So I think that drill before anything, because I think that gets a little bit of everything. It gets technique work, it gets effort, it gets a little bit of assignment in there, because you can talk about T-boards and rip and run, and you can talk about goal line grinders when you got to root somebody out, and da-da-da. And then when you talk about a man's man, there's some toughness involved in that. And then I think when you carry it over, because, like, if you want, again, after you leave the shoots, then it breaks down into more skill development for exactly what you need for your individual positions and things like that. And then when you come together, like, surface reads are a great drill, work with the defensive line, because they can get scheme work. We can get scheme work. I think, again, board drills, I think there's a time and a place for those all the time, but you can't do any one drill too much. But that's straight man's man drill right there, and the toughness aspect of it. And because people are like, well, the toughness can't be, it can be, I think. I think it can be instilled by one another. It's holding someone accountable is developing toughness, right? And that's what you do as an offensive lineman, and I think it can be taught as far as physical and mental toughness, just by the ability of holding people accountable to do what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, in the time.
And it's kind of funny you mentioned, like, obviously we've kind of been talking about the theme of attitude and effort and control you can control. And it's funny, we were talking about earlier, we had like a comment on one of our videos that said like they're looking at us, there's like these guys definitely never spent any time in the trenches. And we were just joking around about that.
Like, oh, that hurts.
I mean, me and Tony have lost a couple of LBs since the end of the season, and we might not look like we used to, but also it speaks to kind of the culture of running a triple option offense, a hurry up triple option offense, which, I think we, to some degree, we earn some respect, throughout some people we play, because even though we're not traditional sized offensive linemen, and I think that even circulates to the D line on our team and other positions that, we might not be the most talented or the fastest or the strongest, but the attitude and effort aspect of, run and get to the ball, just this certain things that the things that you can control.
Yeah. There was this quote, John Strollo, who was Coach Coach Manello and Coach DeLong went down to Northeastern and got a lot of the principles that we use today as far as running the triple option. And he always talks about offensive line. It's the only position of any team that your sole responsibility is to protect others. And so when you think about that, like, your job is so no one else has the skill set that an offensive lineman has, because you have to be agile, you have to be mobile, you have to be able to use your hands as well as your feet, and you've got to have great vision to see what's out in front of you as well. And communication skills have to be, again, on point. So there's so many different skill sets. It's just, okay, you're different. You're not running a 4.5 40 or something like that. And, but those guys can't do a lot of the things that offensive lineman can do. An offensive lineman got to be able to do a little bit of everything, because when they're blocking, especially at the higher levels and different things, elite edge rushers that are running 4.5s, that's you need a pretty good skill set to be able to do that. It's just a unique skill set. And I think with running the triple option, it's such a unique skill set of the expectations of what an offensive lineman has to do. And that's what makes this play special. And that's what makes running the triple option, I think, so special, because then you're even more unique than anybody else, because, at different schemes and things like that, do some different things, but you can get away with just kind of moving bodies together, and it's just different, and that's why I think this skill set is probably more demanding and challenging than anything, because, we can't have a 300-pounder playing tackle here. It just doesn't work, plus they'll hit their shoulders and head on the chutes and drag it like 10 feet. And then they have to go again.
Kind of one last thing here to wrap it up. I know Sam's a busy guy, so he's probably got to go grow back his mustache or something. I don't know what he's up to. But we all know you're a huge caffeine guy. Regardless of what people say you should or shouldn't do. Ultimately, that's your choice. If you had to give up one, and you can only drink one of these for the rest of your life, if you had to pick between Monster and coffee, which one are you drinking?
Man, that's the toughest question.
Yeah. Hey, we want to hit home somewhere here.
Because some people would be like, there's so many different flavors of Monster. And then the one thing with coffee is you can drink it hot or cold.
Yeah.
Monster warm is not good.
Terrible.
And you can be like, well, you can always put ice in it and things like that. But you can choose how you want coffee. And now you can get some different flavors in there and things like that. And And you can, if you want a little extra, you can go turbo with it, you know, a little turbo shot in there. So you can always amp the caffeine up a little bit too with it. So if I had to, my Speedway Liz coffee, you know, when I would stop into Springfield, you get 2 for $2. So that's a pretty good deal.
That is.
Have to be that.